In history, the resilience of the human spirit has been tested in the harshest conditions imaginable. Across wars, disasters, crimes, and acts of nature, there are people who defied the odds and lived to tell their stories. The following are 5 individuals who survived the unthinkable, their journeys marked by unimaginable suffering and extraordinary endurance. Each story is a testament to human survival, strength, and fate, and together they form a narrative of how fragile yet unbreakable life can be. Julianne Koepke was just 17 years old in December of 1971 when she boarded Lanza Flight 508 with her mother, traveling from Lima, Peru to Pucallpa for Christmas. The flight was routine until disaster struck over the Amazon rainforest. A lightning bolt hit the plane, tearing it apart mid-air and sending it into a fatal dive. Almost all 91 passengers and crew were killed instantly, but Julianne, still strapped to her seat, plummeted 2 miles down into the jungle. She miraculously survived the fall with only a broken collarbone, a gash in her arm, and swollen eyes. When she regained consciousness, she found herself alone in one of the most dangerous ecosystems on Earth. She had grown up in the rainforest as her parents were zoologists, so she recognized some plants and survival tactics. With no food except a small packet of candy she had salvaged, she followed a stream, remembering her father's advice that streams lead to rivers and rivers lead to civilization. For 10 days, she trekked barefoot through dense vegetation, her wounds festering and her body weakening. She encountered insects, snakes, and relentless rain, but she pressed on, drinking river water and fighting off despair. Finally, she stumbled upon a small shelter used by lumbermen. There she waited until workers arrived who gave her food, treated her wounds, and brought her back to civilization. Julianne became the only survivor of Flight 508, a living miracle of endurance and knowledge. Her story remains one of the most astonishing examples of surviving both a plane crash and the Amazon jungle. Another tale of unthinkable survival belongs to Aron Ralston, whose name became widely known after his extraordinary ordeal in the Utah desert in April 2003. An experienced outdoorsman, Ralston was hiking alone through Blue John Canyon, a remote part of Canyonlands National Park, when an 800-pound boulder dislodged and pinned his right arm against the canyon wall. He was trapped utterly alone with only limited water, a few snacks, and a dull multi-tool knife. For 5 days he struggled, drinking tiny sips of his water and rationing food, but as time passed, dehydration and exhaustion began to take over. He carved his name and date of birth into the canyon wall, leaving a potential epitaph, believing death was near. Desperation forced him to make a horrifying decision. With no rescue in sight, he realized the only way to live was to amputate his own arm. Using the multi-tool, he first broke his arm bones by leveraging his body weight, then sawed through the flesh, tendons, and nerves. The pain was beyond comprehension, but his will to survive was stronger. Once free, he rappelled down a 65-foot cliff and hiked 7 miles under the scorching sun until he encountered a family who helped call for emergency services. Aron Ralston's survival was a triumph of sheer willpower, determination, and the human instinct to live, even when faced with choices few could make. His story later became the basis for the film 127 Hours, and his name remains synonymous with survival at any cost. The story of Louis Zamperini is another example of enduring what seems impossible. Born in 1917, Zamperini was an Olympic runner who competed in the 1936 Berlin Games, earning fame for his speed and endurance. When World War II erupted, he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces and became a bombardier. In 1943, while on a mission over the Pacific, his plane crashed due to mechanical failure, leaving him and 2 crewmates stranded on a life raft. For 47 days, they floated across the ocean with little food or water, surviving on rainwater, raw fish, and the occasional bird they managed to catch. They endured blistering sun, violent storms, and constant shark attacks. One of his companions eventually died, but Zamperini and the pilot, Russell Phillips, remained alive. They drifted nearly 2,000 miles before being captured by Japanese forces. What followed was even more brutal. Zamperini was held as a prisoner of war in multiple Japanese camps, where he suffered beatings, starvation, slave labor, and relentless psychological abuse. One guard in particular, known as the Bird, singled him out for sadistic torment, trying to break his spirit. But Zamperini endured, refusing to let the abuse crush him. After the war ended, he returned home a broken but unbowed man. His remarkable survival story was later captured in Laura Hillenbrand's book, Unbroken, which became a worldwide bestseller. Zamperini's tale demonstrates how survival is not just about the body, but also about the strength of the human spirit under unimaginable cruelty. Another harrowing survival story is that of Hugh Glass, a frontiersman and fur trapper in the early 19th century, whose ordeal became legendary in American history. In 1823, while on a fur trading expedition in what is now South Dakota, Glass was attacked by a grizzly bear. The animal mauled him severely, tearing his flesh, breaking bones and leaving him near death. His companions, convinced he would not survive, abandoned him, some even taking his rifle and equipment. Left alone, half dead and unable to walk, Glass began an unimaginable crawl across hundreds of miles of wilderness. He set his broken leg, used maggots to clean the festering wounds by eating dead flesh, and survived on berries, roots, and scavenged carcasses. Slowly, painfully, he dragged himself through hostile terrain filled with wild animals and Native American tribes, driven only by his will to live and desire for revenge against the men who abandoned him. Against every odd, he eventually reached safety. Instead of killing the men who left him to die, he forgave them, choosing to continue his life as a trapper. Glass's tale of crawling nearly 200 miles after a grizzly attack has become a cornerstone of survival lore, immortalized in literature and film, including the movie The Revenant. His survival remains a near-mythical testament to endurance and grit in the wilderness. Vesna Vulovic's survival story defies not only the odds, but even the laws of physics. In January 1972, Vesna, a Yugoslav flight attendant, was working aboard Jet Flight 367, traveling from Stockholm to Belgrade. Midway through the journey, the plane exploded due to a bomb planted by terrorists, breaking apart in mid-air. The aircraft plummeted more than 33,000 feet to the ground, killing everyone on board except Vesna. She was found alive in the wreckage, still strapped into her seat, in the middle of a snowy mountainside in Czechoslovakia. She had suffered a fractured skull, broken legs, broken vertebrae, and temporary paralysis, but she was alive. Doctors were astonished that anyone could survive such a fall. Investigators speculated that being trapped by the fuselage, combined with the snow and trees cushioning her fall, may have saved her life. After months of rehabilitation, Vesna recovered, though she was left with a limp. Her survival from the highest fall without a parachute was recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records. Despite the trauma, she continued to live a relatively normal life, later becoming a symbol of resilience in her home country. Her story stands as one of the most miraculous survivals in aviation history. Each of these 5 people endured situations that most would deem unsurvivable. Julian Kupka fell from the sky into the Amazon and walked out alive. Aaron Ralston cut off his own arm to escape certain death. Louis Zamperini survived both the ocean and the cruelty of man in war. Hugh Glass defied a bear attack in the wilderness to crawl back to life. Vesna Vulovic fell farther than any human without a parachute and lived to tell about it. Their stories differ in context and circumstance, yet they all reflect one universal truth: the human will to survive is boundless. When faced with death, pain, and despair, these individuals found within themselves an unimaginable strength. They became symbols not just of endurance, but of hope, reminding the world that even in the darkest, most hopeless moments, survival is possible.